I was 8 when I first saw it, the thing that haunted me in the night. It started with little things a kid like me would brush off as nightmares or the tricks of a restless imagination. I would wake up in the middle of the night to a strange, soft rustling sound, like someone was walking through leaves. My room would be cold, colder than the rest of the house, and I'd lie there under my covers, staring into the dark corners of my room where the nightlight didn't reach. My parents always told me it was nothing. They said, "You're just dreaming, honey," whenever I ran to the room, my little feet pounding against the floor in a panic. They tuck me back into bed, kiss my forehead, and leave, the house settling into its usual eerie silence. But I could never fall back asleep right away. I would lie there, listening, waiting for that sound to start up again. The soft rustling, almost like whispering, coming from the shadows. At first, it was easy to convince myself it wasn't real. After all, my parents said so. It's just a bad dream. Nothing real, all just some kind of trick I'm playing on my mind. But one night, when they were gone, and I was all alone in the house, something happened that remains in my mind and will never leave me. Something I'll never forget. My parents had gone out for dinner, leaving me behind with a promise that they'd be back before midnight. I wasn't worried. I was a big kid. I could handle it. They'd left the TV on in the living room, and I fell asleep to the muffled sounds of cartoons. I don't know how long I was out, but I woke up to that familiar, unnerving cold. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room, replaced with something heavy, something thick that pressed down on me from all sides. I pulled my blanket tighter around me, listening. My heart started to pound in my chest as the rustling began again, just like it always did, coming from the corner of my room. This time, though, it wasn't just a sound. I could see something, movement, just at the edge of my vision. I held my breath and looked toward the darkest corner of the room, just beyond the reach of my nightlight. And there, standing, was something terrifying. At first, it was just a shadow, almost shapeless, drifting along the wall like a trick of the light. But the more I stared, the more I realized it wasn't a shadow at all. It had mass, substance. It was moving slowly at first, but then it stopped, as if it noticed I was watching it for the first time ever. My heart was beating so fast I could barely hear anything over the sound of my own pulse. I couldn't make out its face or any details, but I knew something was there, crouched in the corner, watching me. Part of me wondered why, but the rest just wanted to leave. My voice came out in a shaky whisper, barely loud enough to hear. "Who's there?" The shadow didn't move at first. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it, that my eyes were playing tricks on me. But then it shifted, its form stretching, twisting as it rose up from the floor. It was tall, too tall to fit in the room comfortably, and its limbs were long and spindly, like it had too many joints that bent the wrong way. The thing stepped into the dim light from my nightlight, and I saw its face, if you could even call it a face. Its eyes were empty, dark holes that seemed to suck in the light around them, and its mouth was a wide, jagged line, twisted into something that resembled a grin, but was far too wide and far too wrong to be anything human. Its skin was pale and translucent, almost like it had been stretched too tightly over bones that were sharper and more angular than they should have been. Honestly, it looked like a ghost, but creepier. It was a strange way. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I was frozen in place, staring at the creature as it loomed over me, its head tilting to one side as though it was studying me, waiting for me to move. Then, as if some switch had flipped inside of me, I screamed. I screamed louder than I ever had in my life, the sound ripping from my throat in a desperate plea for help. I never knew my voice could even reach the heights it did, or sound as erratic as it was. My body snapped out of its frozen state, and I threw myself under the covers, hoping, praying that they would protect me from whatever was standing in the middle of my room. The blankets felt heavy, like they were holding me down instead of shielding me. I heard the thing moving closer. Its footsteps, soft but deliberate, like it knew I had nowhere to go. My heart pounded in my chest, and I clenched my eyes shut, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Then, with a violent yank, the covers were ripped off of me. The cold air hit my skin, and I was left exposed, staring up at the ceiling, too terrified to move. I could feel it standing beside the bed, its breath hot and ragged, the weight of its presence pressing down on me. I didn't think, I just acted. I rolled out of bed, hit the floor hard, and scrambled to my feet. I could hear it moving behind me, but I didn't stop. I bolted for the door, my hands shaking so badly I nearly fumbled with the doorknob. I flung the door open and ran down the hallway, my bare feet slapping against the cold hardwood floor. My first instinct was to run to my parents' room, to pound on their door and beg them to let me in. But then, as I reached the door, my heart sank. I remembered. They weren't home. They were out at dinner, and they wouldn't be back for hours. I was alone. I pressed my back against the door, gasping for breath, trying to figure out what to do. The house was deathly quiet, but I could feel it. Feel the thing moving through the hallway, looking for me. My eyes darted around, searching for a place to hide. The closet? No, it would find me there. The bathroom? Maybe, but I'd be trapped. The only option left was the hallway closet, the one at the end, near the stairs. Without thinking, I sprinted toward it, throwing open the door and diving inside. I shut it behind me and crouched down, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small as possible. The closet was cramped, filled with old coats and boxes of things my parents had stored away over the years. I buried myself under the coats, holding my breath, listening. At first, there was nothing, just silence. But then I heard it, the slow, deliberate creak of footsteps on the floorboards outside. I pressed myself further into the darkness, praying that it wouldn't find me. The footsteps grew closer, and I heard the soft rustle of something dragging across the floor. It was searching for me, moving through the hallway, checking every room. I clammed my hand over my mouth, trying to stifle the sound of my breathing. I have no idea how long I stayed in that closet, but it felt like hours. The footsteps stopped outside the closet door, and for a moment, I thought it had found me. But then the sound faded away, growing distant until there was nothing but silence again. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have, because the next thing I knew, I was being shaken awake. My mom's face was hovering over mine, her eyes wide with concern. "Sweetheart, wake up," she said, her voice trembling. "Are you okay?" I blinked, disoriented, my heart still pounding in my chest. I was still in the closet, curled up under a pile of coats, and for a brief moment, I thought I had dreamed the whole thing. But then I saw my dad standing in the doorway, his face pale, and I knew it wasn't a dream. "I saw it," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "The thing in my room, it tried to get me." My parents exchanged a glance, and I could see the worry in their eyes. My dad knelt down beside me, his hand on my shoulder. "We need to tell you something," he said, his voice quiet. "Something we probably should have told you a long time ago." I had no idea what he was about to say, but the look on his face told me it wasn't good. "This house," my dad began, hesitating for a moment. "It was built over an old cemetery a long time ago. We didn't think it mattered. We didn't think anything would happen. But, well, strange things have happened here before." My breath caught in my throat. "You knew?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "You knew, and you didn't tell me?" "We didn't want to scare you," my mom said, her voice soft. "We didn't think anything would happen. But maybe we were wrong." I stared at them, my mind racing. The thing I had seen, the shadow, the creature, it wasn't just a nightmare. It was real, more than real. And it had come from the ground beneath our house, the place where the dead had been buried long ago. My parents tried to reassure me. Their words felt hollow. I knew the truth now. The house wasn't safe. Something was here, something that wasn't going to leave. And every night, as I'd lie in bed, I could still hear it. The soft rustling, the whisper of something moving in the dark, waiting for me to fall asleep. Because it wasn't done with me yet. Hope you enjoy that story, and I'll see you in the next one. See you on the flip side.